All right, well, hey, everybody. Yes, we're starting a little bit late, but it's so nice to have everyone back for an Energy for All Alaska Task Force meeting. The date is Tuesday, July 5th. And yes, we're here with Mr. Nick Czarnecki. He's the director of the Borough's Air Quality Division, at least for a little while longer. Unfortunately, we're going to be losing Mr. Nicholas. Well, we're losing him at the borough, but we get to keep him on for air quality. But really wanted to give everybody an update with winter. Hate to say it, but with winter right around the corner and with oil prices quite high, wanted to give an update or get an update relative to the borough's energy assistance programs, specifically their different conversion assistance programs. Both oil to different kinds of, different kinds of solid fuels, liquid fuels to gas, all those good things. So without further ado, Mr. Czarnecki, please.
Well, thank you, Jomo, and my apologies for running a couple of minutes late. We have a busy week right now with EPA coming up. We have Region 10 coming up this week for a lot of meetings, and it'll be an exciting week for air quality. So jumping into the borough's change-out program, I want to start with just running through where we're sitting. We just closed out the second quarter at the end of June, and thanks to some wonderful staff in the borough's air quality department and our consultants, they were actually able to crunch the numbers and get them to me this weekend so that I could have up-to-date numbers for everybody. And so just a little bit of history. Since the program started in 2010, we have $32 million in change out and conversion funding. And so that's quite a bit. It's a pretty big chunk. I think back in 2018, we estimated we needed around 44 million to get a lot of the change outs accomplished that we wanted to do. So that's a pretty good chunk of that number. As you can see, most of it is federal funding. I'll get into some of that stuff later, but we have a pretty substantial piece of local funding and state funding. This SEP is Supplemental Environmental Project, and those are for like your utilities when they have air quality violations, they can do a SEP and contribute to the change out program. So I want to acknowledge that they do contribute on those. One quick note with this overall funding, this does not include the most recent 1.25 million that the state of Alaska got through their budget. And so in addition to what we have here, there's 1.25 million for the oil and gas program from the state of Alaska that's not yet tallied in these charts that you guys are seeing.
So it would be like 35, it should be 33 and some change total.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
by the way, as always, guys, if you have any questions, this is for you as well as me. Just go ahead and take yourselves off mute. I'm not really monitoring the chat. Take yourselves off mute and just fire away. Except to know that, yes, Squirrelwood, good to see you, Raymond.
Yep, and so yeah, if anybody has any questions, definitely just speak up, and we can go down those rabbit holes as necessary. And so the total program expenditures between 2010 and the close of second quarter 2022 is 15.3 million. And so you can see we've burned through roughly half of that money that we've pulled in since 2010. Our funding balance right now sits at $16.6 million. And I have this broken out amongst the different funding sources because this is where it really gets into each funding source has different eligibility requirements for the program. And so this local oil to gas, we still have $1 million in the local oil to gas because the borough just recently at the beginning of this year appropriated $1 million. So that's the local funding. This is for just taking the oil to gas. And I want to start with this one because this is the most popular program that we have right now. And even though it shows that we have $1 million, this is completed projects that have been paid out. Now it takes people between 3 and 6 months to enter the program, get approved, find a vendor, remove the old device, get it destroyed, do all the paperwork, get the new stuff put in, and they have to have everything 100% complete before we actually close it out and it shows up on this chart. So with that $1 million, it's actually all encumbered right now. It's been encumbered for 2 months. So we're not accepting any more applications on this because we have enough people in the program already that are approved and moving forward to eat up that $1 million. Now, the other piece of funding that is available for oil to gas conversions is this federal 2021 targeted airshed grant, which is $3.2 million. This targeted airshed grant had a start date of July 1st, 2022. However, it still needs to go through a lot of processes before we can actually spend it. It was in the state budget, so it passed the state budget because this grant is awarded to DEC. From DEC, DEC does not have granting authority, so they have to do a reimbursable service agreement or an RSA over to the Department of Commerce. Then Department of Commerce, if the state has granting authority, they have to grant it to the borough, and then the borough has
there has to be a grant agreement.
Yeah, there has to be the grant agreement. The borough has to agree to the grant agreement, and then because it's a financial matter, has to put an appropriation ordinance in front of the assembly. And then once that gets passed, then we can actually spend money. Until that's done, we can't spend any money. And so we obviously know that these things are going. We're preparing all those processes to try to get them to happen. I don't expect any hiccups or difficulties getting through all those processes, but it just takes time, which means August or September really before we can actually spend this money, which is not great news for folks that are wanting to switch over already to oil, do the oil to gas and take advantage of that. But we do have people on a wait list. We have, with that 3.2 million, we can do over 300 oil to gas conversions, and we have a wait list of 111 right now already, where they've already put in applications and are moving through here. And so we've got folks lined up for the oil to gas piece.
It's too bad I don't have a representative from the IGU. Sounds like September is nearing the very end of their installation season, their standard installation season.
It is. And we're working very closely with IGU on this, and it brings up a couple of other points. You know, the funding isn't necessarily the bottleneck anymore. We're well funded. It's the timing of the funding, but then there's also vendor capacity. There's supply chain issues with actually getting the natural gas boilers. Some vendors are running into some issues there. And then we're also, running up against the IGU in actually getting the lines done and the meters on. So our office is really trying to coordinate with IGU to try to make sure that we get all of the folks that have this available money right here, which is, to get those folks through that are getting meters, that are actually getting meters hung on their house with IGU. We're trying to get those through. And then we know that there's people that aren't going to get their meters hung. And so we're trying to really direct those folks towards this chunk of money. And so we're doing everything internally that we can to funnel people to the right places. But it's still not an easy task. And we're also pretty short staffed at the air quality department to be able to handle this many applications. We have 2 additional staff members that will be brought on and paid for with this money. We actually have, it's close to 5 million. So we have 3.2 million of project money, and then we have another 2 million to fund two full-time employees for the grant term, which is 5 years.
From the feds.
From the feds.
That's nice.
Yeah, and so we have that. Well, it's just not we can't go out for any job announcements until we make it through all those different processes with getting things set up. And so it's a busy time, but we're definitely doing everything we can because we know that people are really wanting to move over to natural gas and get away from oil because of the volatility of the prices.
We're seeing that volatility now. As far as that, the wait list and that federal 2021 Charter Air Shirt grant, does your application get stale at any time? Or we could say someone wanted to potentially transition over to gas next summer. Could they get on the wait list now?
Absolutely, they can get on.
Okay.
They can get on the wait list now. Technically, the application is good for 90 days, but because of this, the situation that we're working with, the borough staff is really doing a lot of work to make sure that folks that have to get out a year so that they're going to get taken care of.
At this point, it sounds like the readily available funds are already.
They're already spoken for. Yes.
Subscribed. So your 90
Yeah.
days. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then there will be, that 1.25 million from the state of Alaska that made it through the governor's office budget. That will be available, but again, that has to be granted from the state to the borough before the borough can go ahead and spend that money. And so for this season, unfortunately, some things are going to come too late, but then that's going to be, I haven't run the projections yet, but that should be roughly another 150 folks that get changed over from oil to gas. And so that'll really bump the numbers up. One thing that I want to point out though, is that our biggest chunk of money, we still have 9.3 million in this 2019-2020 targeted airshed grant. And that is for your traditional wood stove changeout program. And so these are things where if you want to go from, if you have a wood stove or a fireplace or a pellet stove, and you're looking to go over to natural gas, then you can be eligible right now for $10,000 to switch over to natural gas if you're willing to give up your wood stove. And that is, we're moving people, if anybody has that, if you have a fireplace, you have a wood stove, and you want to go to natural gas, you give up that wood burning appliance and you get $10,000. We have a ton of funding in right now. We're moving people through there. The biggest constraint, again, is going to be finding a vendor that can do it, and then getting the meter hung at your house. And at this point, with IGU, we might be reaching into the time where, IGU might not be able to get more meters on. I know that they're doing their level best to work as many people through this process too, but it's a complicated endeavor to get everything done.
Couple questions.
Yep.
Okay, so that still leaves all right, let's just stick with this for now. So regarding the targeted airshed grant, the 3.2 million. Oh no. So regarding the 3.2 million, to tap into that, would you need to give up your wood stove?
You can, but not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
That is an oil to gas, and
So it's just oil to gas.
you give up your oil, your oil boiler, and this is an air quality program, so we have to ensure permanent emission reduction somehow. The way we do that is we take the device out of the air shed and physically destroy it. That's what EPA, says is doable for that. And so we'll get SO2 emission reductions, which are going to be important for SIP purposes moving forward. And so that's why we're able to do those without giving up a wood stove. You still have to sign a deed restriction. Everything comes with a deed restriction, because even though we're getting SO2 emission reductions for that oil boiler, we don't want to do the conversion from oil to gas and then have a wood stove come in and backfill, because then we wouldn't see any gain, would see worse air quality.
Right.
So we have to do the deed restriction. The deed restriction is, it applies to everything that's future installations. So if you want to do the oil to gas program and you have a pellet stove in your house, then you can give up your oil boiler, you get $7,500, you can convert over to natural gas. sign the deed restriction, you get to keep your pellet stove, you just can't put any new one in. But there is so many really neat options that we can tailor this program to anybody. Same situation, but you're short on money. If you want to combine your oil boiler and your pellet and get 10,000 for your pellet, 7,500 for your oil boiler, you get a $17,500 incentive.
You guys should take care of your entire conversion of the gas.
That could take care of almost your entire conversion over to gas. We would have to do it out of this funding, so you'd have to wait, but you would be able to do it without very much out-of-pocket expense. So I think we're really well set up to handle a bunch of different scenarios. You know, so anybody that comes in, borough staff can really work with them and find out what's going to be best for you.
Best for you.
You can also change out your oil boiler, get an emergency backup system. Because last winter, everybody was out of power for days. Those are always options, because we know that wood stoves are a very popular backup source of heat. And so if you want to ensure that you're protected against that, those emergency power backup systems can pay for the switch kit, generator, batteries, solar. Those are all eligible expenditures that you might not be able to pay for all of that with your incentive, but those are all eligible expenditures.
That's right. That for which there's funding to help get down that road.
Yes, and that's all out of this $9.3 million as well.
What about these further legacy funds?
So let's see, we just recently closed out the 2016 tags, so you don't see it on here. The 2017 and 2018, these are wood conversions. And so these are, if you're going from wood to fuel oil, wood to gas, wood to emergency power backup, or just complete removal, then those are those options through those different programs. And so we still have quite a bit of funding sitting in those, and we'll probably finish up this 2017 tag in the next year. And then there is another targeted airshed grant that is going to be coming out for the request for proposal next month. So we'll find out details on that one. So we have a pretty good mechanism of keeping the programs funded. I think our biggest challenges now are dealing with staffing on the borough side, dealing with vendor capacity, supply chain issues, and then just IGU's limitations that they can only get gas meters on during a short time in the summer. So lots of other things that kind of come into play, but funding wise, we're sitting pretty good.
Oh, okay, for once. Okay.
Yeah, for once it's something.
Can I just get a quick clarification on the wood stove swap out? Did you say there is funding, and is that borough wide? For the last 10 plus years, we've been told we're just outside the boundary for being eligible for the swap out. We are in the borough. We're on the backside of Chena Ridge. So if there are those programs and it's funded and it's borough wide, then we'll absolutely be back in touch.
Yeah, let me. That's a really good question, and let me pull up a map here so I can show you. So it was originally limited to just the which now we'll get to this map here. So it was originally limited to the air quality control zones.
Share that.
Oh, I gotta share that screen. Sorry. Go back to this screen. Okay. All right. Can everybody see the map now?
Yep.
Yep.
You can see it.
Okay. So the program boundaries were originally limited to what's shaded in purple and blue, which are the air quality control zones. But last year we did open it up to the entire non-attainment area, which is this boundary that includes the Gold Stream area here. And so the entire non-attainment area is open to the program. It is not the entire borough, but it is the entire non-attainment area. And so if you're on the backside of Chena Ridge, you were probably over in this area. And if you're in that shaded Goldstream zone, then the program is open to you now.
Yeah, it looks like according to this, we're just off to the lower southwest corner of all of it. So it's still not eligible.
Oh, you're outside of the boundary of the entire
We're-
non-attainment area.
Yeah, just below where your cursor is, down, I mean, like right on the line. I mean, we're just down on it looks like the line may be following Becker Ridge there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it does. And unfortunately, it's the program's probably never going to be open outside of the non-attainment area.
Yeah.
All of the federal funding is specific to the non-attainment area, and it can't be used outside the non-attainment area. So unless they change those boundaries, which we really don't want them to change those boundaries.
Oh yeah, no, I understand. There is the 10 out 440s out, all that area out past well, that's just outside of the containment area. There's still a lot of desire to develop and put a lot of construction and new construction in there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all goes. Thank you for taking the time and answering the questions, though. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And are there any other,
Well, can you pull the bucks back up?
pull the charts back up?
I see Clark's coming off of, or turning on his video.
Yes, well, yeah, and I don't need to distract Nick while he's trying to pull it up. I was wondering, because you focused on money and that's what we were going to hear. I was wondering if even briefly we've had some improvements in air quality. That's a question. I wasn't sure. I haven't kept up and don't really know where to look to just see how things are going. And I don't mean smoke, or excuse me, I don't mean forest fire smoke. I mean winter, etc. How are we having any improvements? Which is kind of akin to the benefits or the changes, the positive changes we've had for several years.
Yeah, and that's a good question, Clark. We are seeing some improvements. There's a separate air quality annual report that the borough and DEC partner together to put out, usually in the April to May timeframe. And if I had more time, I could pull it up and show where all the different things are. But basically, we're seeing Fairbanks is seeing improvement in the wintertime. We're currently below the standard in the Fairbanks monitor, but the controlling monitor is North Pole. And
Right.
in North Pole, we've seen some really good improvement since the initial high values in 2015. But we've kind of plateaued the last couple of years. Whether that plateau is, we've plateaued at about twice the standard at around 60, 69.
Just share that now. 69.
Yeah, 69 micrograms per meter cube, and the standard is 35. But we're hopeful that the new set of control measures that's just coming into play is going to help reduce that.
Good.
Those control numbers include what, number one, transition to number one only for sale this fall, right?
Correct. Number one fuel only. This the transition from number two to number one diesel is September 2022. So that's this fall, where you will only be able to purchase number one fuel oil, and that's a sulfur reduction. And so there is that control measure. There's also, the changeout program accounts for about 40% of the emission reductions that you see. It's a huge bump. There's the curtailment program where you have to, when it gets too high, you're not supposed to burn. There's things going into the curtailment program. The state has, additional resources for staffing that they're doing for that. There's going to be 3 large highway signs that are being constructed to help alert folks of when that's happening. There's the real estate measure, where if you have an old uncertified device, it's not allowed to be sold with your house. And we actually work closely with the state to make sure that those people can get funding from the borough to do that, so that you don't just have to give up a stove if you're selling a house. There's date certain removal in 2024 of all uncertified appliances, that control measure. And then there's also the new stricter standards that DEC is looking at to make sure that only the cleanest of the clean appliances are available to be sold for sale. So all of those things and behavioral changes and everything, and meteorological variations, there's all those variables that go into play with, are we improving? And so we're trying to hit everything, but
So I guess part of the punchline I just got off of that is, Fairbanks proper is inside that subzone is doing pretty good. It's
Yes.
improved, and now it's actually meeting standard. At least or has been meeting standard. There's a
Yes.
time factor of all of this.
there is a time factor in all of this, and the standard will probably change. We expect new standards to be proposed this fall.
Lovely. It's still good. It's all about cleaner air. North Pole is still challenged, but
Yes.
we are seeing improvement. We expect further improvement. Okay, can we have one more, just a little bit of discussion while we have you for another minute or two, relative to the sale of appliances? Get that more limited suite of wood burning appliances to better ensure that they're actually burning cleaner
Mhm.
than what was previously available for sale. How's that been done?
So that's
Because it was a bit of a fracas.
yeah. There's a lot of work that's happening right now with that. Basically, what we have is the EPA, and let's see if I can find something here really quick. EPA's certification program was basically failing. They were letting stoves through that certified at 2 grams per hour that in replica testing, we're testing as high as 20 to 30 grams per hour.
It's quite a delta.
Yeah, it's quite the delta, and it's very, very disturbing. There has been an Office of Inspector General opened up an inquiry back in January. They came out to Fairbanks and visited out here. Some folks might have been involved in some of those discussions. And we've been working with EPA, not the region, but the headquarters with OAQPS, which is Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards, and their measurement technology group. They're in charge of the testing methods. The state of Alaska has successfully petitioned to revoke one of their testing methods that was more easily manipulated by industry. And so there have been some successes there. However, it hasn't been all roses and successes. There's been a lot of pushback from WEGO, which is the Office of Enforcement and Compliance Actions. They're the ones that actually run the certification program, and they would be forced to take action upon themselves, which they're very hesitant to do. And so that's why the Office of Inspector General got involved. So far, out of all those stoves, we have one piece of EPA that says, wow, this data is really, really helpful, and it's bad enough that we're going to pull this entire test method that nobody can use it to certify anymore. Those same stoves that tested did over 10 times the limit in replica tests. OECA says, oh, these stoves are still good to sell, and they're still good for any national change-out program to install these stoves. And so that's why when we have EPA telling us that, that's why we have the state of Alaska that's trying to figure out, okay, we know that some of these stoves are not good. And so we have to ensure that the ones that manipulated the certification do not get into the non-attainment area, because those will be there for 30 years, 40 years.
And we're trying to clean up the air.
And we're trying to clean up the air. Yeah. So
I can say that I did go get a part for my pellet stove at Woodway. And the showroom still has great stuff for sale. So, some of the concern made it sound like, we might have nothing that they'd be able to sell, thereby bringing them out of business. It definitely was a little bit, it was a more limited suite. Still some very nice looking appliances.
yeah, then it's probably going to be more of the higher end appliances. The ones that you can buy at Lowe's and Home Depot are no longer available. Those tend to be some of the ones that
Punched.
that manipulated the certification. Yeah. Mhm.
All right, well, hey, everybody. Again, poor Mr. Nicholas, he has another appointment.
But I do really appreciate you coming to spend some time with us, and really great. Thank you for the information. Do we have any final questions before we let Mr. Nicholas go?
Let's see, and there was.
Yeah, Jomo, this is Luke Hopkins.
Go ahead, Luke.
Hi, I have a question. What is the status of EPA review and possible approval of a upcoming, I guess, implementation plan for Fairbanks? Are they considering any further actions to improve the air quality?
That is a really good question, Luke. And so EPA is right now looking at taking action on the serious SIP and the 5% plan. And so that will mean that they are going to either approve, disapprove, partially disapprove. That's part of the reason that they're coming up to talk to us this week, is they're going to give us a heads up on what pieces of the SIP they are going to approve and disapprove. Right now, we expect that parts of the SIP will be approvable, parts will not be approvable by Region 10's eyes. And so we'll start another round of negotiations there. But that's a very important policy question, and we hope to get some more information this week.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And Mr. Nick, when do you move up? DEC?
So my last day at the borough is July 25th, and I will be starting with the state July 26th.
Oh, okay. Well,
So
then friends, hopefully by the end of July or top of August, we can get an update on the status from Nick at DEC.
yes, I will be doing a lot of the same stuff, and so feel free to reach out. The DEC moved position up to Fairbanks, so I'll be in Fairbanks and doing a lot of the same stuff. And we're working on transitions to find somebody to come in and manage the change out program and all that important stuff.
Okay. Well, on behalf of myself, guys and gals here at FEDC, and to the Energy Task Force, who you've kept updated on this and allowed us to give feedback regarding this process for these many years. Just want to thank you for your service to us directly here in the FNSB, and thank you for your continuing bird dogging of this issue for us here in Fairbanks. Position.
Oh yes, and it'll be we'll be available and still be very involved in air quality here. And sorry I have to run here, but yeah, we've got a busy week with EPA coming up and all sorts of fun stuff. So thank you, everybody. Always appreciate the chance to talk about air quality.
Well, all right, everybody. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm still trying to line up something for next week. Again, we'll be doing some further status relative to this cost of oil for sure. And things that folks, my hope is to get some folks from the weatherization programs, and so we can get a status update regarding, again, just making sure that you need less fuel, thereby decreasing those costs. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your week. I hope everybody had a happy 4th of July, and we'll talk to you soon.